What's up, guys? Second video of the channel here. First actual topic video. Um, this topic is going to be, does life have more positives or more negatives? I kind of have a biased take here because I'm very lucky to have been born in the United States with two loving parents, but I still think my answer, might not necessarily be exactly what you expect. I don't know, maybe it is, who really knows. Um, to kind of start out, I'm gonna kind of, give a little bit of backstory here. My life's been pretty good, growing up. Like, money wasn't really a concern, and I've always had two loving parents, which is rare, especially for some people outside of the United States, let alone in. But, you know, recently, um, about a year ago, my grandmother passed away, and that kind of changed the dynamic here, especially because now, just recently, my grandfather moved into my house along with my aunt. So, a lot of life things have been changing, and kind of the reason I wanted to make this video was because I was thinking, well, does life have more positives or more negatives in it? And, I was really thinking about it because there are so many positives in life, like, getting a girlfriend or getting married, and, even if it's something as small as eating a good meal or something as large as, again, like getting married. But there's also so many negatives, like every time you fall over, you get hurt, or, every time your parents used to yell at you, or every argument with your siblings. Like, it's just there's just so much of each, and I kind of think there isn't really one right answer to this because you could say that you learned something from the negatives, you could say you learned something from the positives, but if I had to choose an answer, I would honestly say that there are realistically more negative things in life than positive ones. It's not really such a optimistic look on it, but I would at least like to say that I think the positives kind of outshine the negatives, at least the big positives anyway. You know, I think if you're, at least from what I've seen, on your deathbed or getting older in general, I feel like most of the time you kind of have much more of a positive mindset than a negative one. I don't know, maybe that's just me, but I feel like as you get older, maybe you kind of grow optimistic about things. But anyway, back to the kind of central story here I was telling. Um, my grandpa and aunt moved in recently, which kind of changes a lot of dynamic in my house. It's much more packed now with two more people in the house. I only used to have my mom and dad and brother living in the house, so now with six people in the house, it can get crowded at times. And my grandma passing was a very big negative to affect the family, and a lot of people I feel like kind of have the sentiment that things aren't going in the best direction right now, either financially or, just in my case, family wise. But if I had to, give my take on it, it's such a scale. Like, there's so many different things happening at once. It's so hard to say, is it just a positive or is it just a negative? Um, I think with my, life and age now, I've the most creative and the most conscious, you could call it, I've ever been, which is a huge, huge positive, especially considering the fact that I'm a very imaginative person. It's a very big thing I like doing. I like imagining, I like thinking. So that's a huge, huge positive. But I feel like for the average person, there are just so many, like, negatives. Like paying bills and making ends meet and stuff like that. Like, even if you don't have money as an issue, like if you're famous, it's always doing something to be performative or to just like stay in good graces with the public or something like that. I feel like there really are just so many negatives to life in general that I don't know, maybe are overlooked a little bit. I think, the best way to kind of understand if your life is more negative or more positive is to think maybe not the amount of negatives or positives like this video is talking about, but to talk more so about, are the big moments more positive or negative? Like, I think everyone's got to have a few positive moments in their life that they can think about. Talking to friends, I feel like it's a lot of the same consensus that life really is more negative than positive, You know, it's just a slow downhill from when you were born. It's kind of shame to look at, but if you think about it, at least from a perspective of a late teenager, you're not really looking forward to much. You know, you get older, you get weaker, you get more sick, and I think when you zoom out to the entire life, the prime years could be considered, maybe you could go from like late teens to early 30s, but that there's just so much else that it would be considered, a decline from the best, or just a negative experience in general, which is it's a shame, but I feel like a lot of people are just so used to it, and society as a whole is just so used to it that it doesn't even get talked about. But the negative things they're overwhelming, I feel like sometimes. I mean, I couldn't imagine a world where nothing negative happens. Like, I feel like when that's talked about, it's almost talked about as a dystopia where people can't be unhappy, and it's like people can't even think for themselves. Like, that's kind of how it is that when there's no negatives, there's no mind, or there's no consciousness to it, which kind of just shows you how negatives and bad experiences are, like, to a certain extent, like more overwhelming than the positive ones. I can think of people who've created things where people are just upset all the time, and you can almost see that, or like a big brother example or something like that, where it's just like it's a other dystopia, like, but they're still people, like they're just engraved in negative experiences, which just kind of goes to show you that the negative experiences, they're overwhelming, and thinking of a world without them it's almost impossible. It's almost seen as equal to a world where negative is absolutely overruling the positive. It's the same thing. Positive overrules the negative. They're, like, they're not even conscious people, I feel like, when depicted, but it's just so interesting to me because there's just so many things and events that happen in a life, but really, if you think about it, it's kind of like that calendar of like life events where it's like, you know, each box is like a week or something, and like there's like I don't even know how many boxes, like a few hundred. Some is like for school, some is for work, and it's like only like 2%, 3%, maybe it's like 5%. I don't really know the percent off the top of my head. Is the actual like free time hobby activity style things, which is just crazy to me. It's just crazy that in all of that, it's all, less than ideal circumstances. But I just figured I'd make this rant video because I've been thinking about it a little bit recently. I know it might come across as very like scatterbrained or whatever. I'm not expecting these to be the best videos, at least not great yet. But if you enjoyed it, just subscribe, let me know. If you have improvements or ideas on how I can make these videos better, I'm fine with that too. I know this probably isn't the most interesting video, but I figured I enjoyed talking about it. I enjoy listening about it, so I'm assuming someone else must, right? Alrighty. Anyway, see you guys later.